Something big is happening in Australia. A lot of people do not want to talk about it. Real estate agents and local councils are pretty quiet about it. The truth is that some towns and suburbs are being left behind. This is not about people moving to a new place for a better job. Families are actually selling their homes for money than they paid for them. They are giving up on their mortgages, just walking away. Because of this, communities are falling apart. If you look at the numbers, you can see that not every part of Australia is getting bigger like people thought. Australia is seeing this happen now. Australia has towns and suburbs that are being quietly left behind in Australia. I looked into this closely, and what the property people are saying does not match what is actually happening with the property industry. The property industry is saying one thing. The reality on the ground is different from what the property industry is telling us about the property industry. There are 12 places in Australia where people are really leaving in 2026. We looked at how bad it's in each place. The place that is number 1 is a warning for people who think that property prices in Australia always go up. At number 12 is Gladstone in Queensland. This place has 63,000 people living there now. Before, Gladstone had 67,000 people from 2012 to 2015. That was when they were building those LNG plants. They built 3 of them at the time. Because of this, a lot of workers came to Gladstone and housing prices went up. When the construction work was finished, most of those jobs were gone. The price of properties went down by 20 to 30%. Now the prices are a little better, but not like before. The number of kids in schools also went down by up to 25%. There are fewer shops and restaurants in Gladstone now. The electrician came to town when things were really taking off. He left when everything went back to normal. He actually sold his house for $60,000 less than he paid for it. A teacher who lives in the town said that the town is not dead, it just went back to being a town where people work and live. The good thing about this is that the town is stable now. The bad thing is that it will probably never have another big boom like that again. The town has to choose between being stable and having a lot of things happening, which is a big decision for the people who live in the town, like the local teacher and the electrician who used to live there. Number 11 is Karratha in Western Australia. The town of Karratha has around 17,000 people living there. The number of people in Karratha can change a lot because of the mining business. Sometimes the number of people in Karratha can go up or down by 30%. This is really big. The price of houses in Karratha can also change a lot. Some houses in Karratha have sold for than $800,000, and some have sold for less than $350,000. This is a difference. Many companies in Karratha are hiring workers who fly in and out of people who live in Karratha all the time. Karratha has workers who fly in from other places. For example, one engineer flies to Karratha from Perth. He does this so his kids can live in one place and go to the school all the time. A nurse who has lived in Karratha for a time says that the people who really live in Karratha are very strong. She also says that the town of Karratha is always changing, and this can be hard for people. The town of Karratha has to deal with a lot of ups and downs. Mildura in Victoria is at number 10. It has 56,000 people living there. The town is not getting any bigger because young people are moving away. The weather is really hot. It is hard to know if there will be enough water. This makes it difficult for farmers to know if they will be okay. Mildura has a lot of farms, and the people who live there are worried. A man who grows grapes for a living and his family has been doing it for a time decided to leave in 2022. He did not think it was an idea to invest in his farm anymore. A nurse at the hospital in Mildura says that the people who live there are still very close. The weather is making things harder for them. The climate is putting a lot of pressure on Mildura. Number 9 is Whyalla in South Australia. The population of Whyalla has really gone down. It used to be around 33,000 people in 1976, but now it is about 21,500 people. This is because the steel industry has changed a lot over the years. House prices in Whyalla are around $250,000. They are not really going up. It takes a time to sell a house, more than 100 days. A woman who used to be a teacher left Whyalla. She did not want her children to get stuck there. A man who supervises steel work thinks that making steel in an environmentally friendly way, which is called green steel, might help Whyalla. Even he is not really sure if this will work. The steel industry and green steel are very important to Whyalla. Mount Isa in Queensland is number 8. It has around 18,000 people living there now. This is a drop from 25,000 people before. The mining companies do not have people living in Mount Isa Anymore, they just fly in and out. This has made the prices of houses go down by than half. One guy who used to work in the mines left Mount Isa because all his friends were gone, the schools were. The shops were disappearing. Someone who has had a business in Mount Isa for a time says that Mount Isa is still a community, but it is slowly losing everything that makes it a town. Mount Isa is being slowly hollowed out. Number 7 is Broken Hill in New South Wales. This town used to be really big with around 35,000 people living. Now it has 17,500 residents. For over 100 years, the mining industry has been getting smaller and smaller. It has never really gotten better. You can buy a house in Broken Hill for little as $50,000. A nurse who had family living in Broken Hill for 4 generations had to leave Broken Hill to get the care she needed. On the hand, an artist says that the low prices in Broken Hill give her the freedom to be creative. The problem is that Broken Hill is losing its heritage and culture as the town gets smaller and smaller. Broken Hill is a town that keeps shrinking. Townsville is the place on this list. It is a city in a regional area with around 195,000 people living there. The weird thing is that people are leaving Townsville while the rest of Queensland is getting more people. There were floods in Townsville in 2019. After that, insurance costs went up a lot, as much as 300%. People are leaving Townsville because of a lot of problems. There is a lot of crime and many empty shops in the city center. The city does not have different types of businesses, which is also a problem. One person who used to work with computers in Townsville left the city. They said that crime and insurance costs made their life very difficult. A doctor who still lives in Townsville says that when people leave, it makes things even worse for the city. Townsville and its problems are a concern for this doctor. Townsville needs to find a way to keep people from leaving. The city of Queensland is having a lot of problems, and people are moving away from its city in the north. The main reasons for this are the floods, the high crime rate, and the increasing cost of insurance, which are all making people want to leave, so the city is not growing like it used to. Queensland is really struggling with these issues. Number 4 is Noosa hinterland and the towns around it where people work. This is not the kind of decline, it is more like people are being pushed out. The prices of houses in Noosa are over $1.5 million. In the areas around it, they are over $800,000. At the time, the cost of rent has gone up a lot, but the money people earn has not. It is really hard to find a place to rent, term almost impossible. People who work in cafes, teach kids, and work in stores can no longer afford to live in Noosa hinterland. Because of this, businesses are reducing their hours because they cannot find people to work for them. I know a woman who works at a cafe in Noosa. She had to move out of her place because her rent went up a lot. It used to be $380. Then it jumped to $680. That is an increase. I also know a person who owns a restaurant. This person bought their place a time ago, so they are okay. However, they are having a time finding people to work for them. They are only open 4 days a week. They still cannot find workers. It is really sad because Noosa is a place that a lot of people want to visit. The thing that made Noosa so nice is being hurt. The community that made Noosa desirable is being destroyed. Noosa is losing the people who made it a great place to live. Number 3 is Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers. The price of a home in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers is really high now. It is over $2.2 million. This is then double what it was in 2019. A lot of homes in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers are now used for short-term rentals. Over 40% of the homes are like this. Because of this, workers and nurses and teachers in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers cannot afford to live in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers. Some people have to sleep in their cars. The big flood in Lismore in 2022 made things even worse. It destroyed the affordable homes near Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers. One yoga instructor lived in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers for 10 years. She had to leave Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers when her rent got too high. Her rent was $850. She could not afford it. The owner of her home sold it to be used for Airbnb. A nurse is saying that the hospital is having a tough time finding new staff. The hospital that Byron was at back in 2016 is not the hospital it is today. Byron has changed a lot since 2016. Number 2 is Alice Springs. The population of Alice Springs is falling fast. This is because people are worried about crime and safety. There are break-ins all the time. A lot of businesses in Alice Springs have closed down. They are not open as many hours as they used to be. A teacher who lived in Alice Springs her whole life left the town after someone broke into her house while her kids were inside. An indigenous health worker from Alice Springs says that the people who stay in Alice Springs are the ones who have to deal with all the problems while everyone else gets to leave. The price of houses in Alice Springs is going down. This is happening even though there are not many houses for sale. The crisis in Alice Springs is real, it is not made up. Exaggerated. The crisis in Alice Springs is something that people should be worried about. The number one spot is Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone. This place has seen a drop in people living there around 5 to 7% since the big floods in 2022. The Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone has not gotten back to normal yet. A lot of homes in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone were completely flooded. Insurance for homes in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone is a problem now. The cost of insurance for the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone went up by 300 to 1,000%, or people could not even get insurance anymore. Some homes in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone now need to pay $15,000 to $50,000 every year just to get covered. Banks are not willing to lend money to people in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone. The government had a buyback plan. It was not very helpful to people in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone. People in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone had to accept low offers for their homes, or they had to stay without insurance. Then there was another flood in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone in 2024. It showed that this is what life is like now in the Lismore and the Northern Rivers flood zone. A third-generation cafe owner had to leave after rebuilding the cafe 2 times. They were still denied insurance. The prices of homes in flood zones have gone down a lot by much, as 70%. There are some homes that people just cannot sell no matter what price they ask for. The Lismore that we knew in 2019 is really gone. So that is the situation. There are 12 places in Australia where people are really leaving. This is happening because of things like mines closing and bad weather, well as a lot of crime and houses being too expensive. The numbers of people living in these places are going down. That is a fact. Even if people who sell houses try to make things sound better than they are, the numbers do not lie. Australians are already finding it hard to live in some places because of climate change, having to travel away to work and houses costing too much money. Climate change and these other issues are changing the places where Australians can live, like the 12 places that are seeing a lot of people leave. This is information for buyers, residents, investors, and families. It is not telling you what to do. Some people are staying in their homes. Some areas may get better. The idea that every single place in Australia is getting bigger and better is only good for the people who sell properties, not for the buyers, residents, investors, and families. The truth is more important than what the property people are saying. If you made it this far, subscribe for data-driven analysis, not real estate spin. Comment which place surprised you most, or whether you've lived through an exodus yourself.